One evening, Ose received a text from her sister, who she had not spoken to in a very long time. It was a picture of her best friend Teka and Osai holding hands and walking into a supermarket together. Ose stared at the picture on her phone for a long time, her heart racing. Seeing Teka and Osai together, hand in hand, was something she didn't anticipate. She had dismissed Osai's need for love, his yearning for connection, thinking it was something trivial, something that didn't matter. Yet now, seeing him with her best friend, something stirred within her. A strange and unexpected pang of jealousy mixed with anger. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her sister.
Is that who you finally settled for? What a joke. Thank goodness that I didn't attend your wedding. I can never be associated with such foolishness.
Ose's hands trembled slightly as she read her sister's message, clenching her phone tightly in her hands. She had never wanted Osai for anything beyond being the father of her children, and yet, this image of him with Teka unsettled her. She had told Teka that if she pitied Osai so much, she could give him the love that she had refused to provide. But deep down, Ose had never imagined Teka would actually do it. For the first time, she felt something crack within her hard exterior. She lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts swirling in confusion. Why did it bother her so much? After all, hadn't she rejected Osai's love repeatedly? Hadn't she made it clear that all she wanted from him was a child, nothing more? But the image of Teka and Osai together lingered in her mind, stirring feelings that she had long buried beneath layers of indifference. The next day, Osai came to visit her as usual, bringing flowers and a warm meal. His face showed signs of exhaustion, but his concern for her had not waned. Ose, however, could barely look at him. Ose, how are you feeling today? He asked softly, placing the flowers on the table beside her bed. Fine, she replied curtly, her eyes avoiding his. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension, and Osai could sense something was wrong. Is everything okay? You seem different. Ose let out a small bitter laugh. Different? Of course, I'm different. I'm stuck here pregnant, while you and Teka are out living your best lives. Osai blinked in confusion, taken aback by her sudden accusation. What? Teka and I? What are you talking about? Ose finally met his gaze, her eyes flashing with something Osai hadn't seen in a long time. Emotion. I saw the picture, Osai. You and Teka, holding hands, looking like a happy couple. So is that how it is now? My best friend is the one who's giving you what I couldn't? Osai was stunned. He hadn't expected this reaction from Ose. For months, she had been indifferent, cold, and completely disinterested in his affection. And now, suddenly she cared? Ose, Teka has been helping me through all of this because I've been lost. You pushed me away again and again. What did you expect me to do? Stay in a marriage where I'm treated like a means to an end? Ose's lips tightened. She hadn't expected his response to be so direct, nor had she anticipated how much it would hurt to hear him say it out aloud. But her pride wouldn't let her admit that. Instead, she crossed her arms, her voice colder than before. I told you from the start what I wanted, Osai. Children, that's all. You were the one who thought love would magically appear. Now, if you're done with your fairy tale dreams, maybe you should leave. Osai's face softened with sadness. I did love you, Ose, I still do. But love can't survive in a place where it's not nurtured. I deserve more than this cold indifference, and you deserve someone who can accept your terms. Maybe it's time we both moved on. I will always be in the life of my child, but right now, I am prioritizing my happiness over anything else. Ose didn't respond, her heart aching in ways she hadn't expected. She had never wanted Osai's love, but now that he was talking about letting go, about moving on, something inside her twisted painfully. Osai, however, could not wrap his head around what could have gone wrong. His mind raced back to the first time they met, back at the university, when Ose was the kind and cheerful girl. Osai could remember how brilliant she was and how she offered to tutor him when he was struggling with statistics. This was close to their exams, and Ose took out her time to teach him all that he needed to know, not minding that their exams were fast approaching. Osai excelled in statistics, a subject that he never believed he could excel in. This drew him to Ose, who was so kind and selfless. However, when they returned for their final year, Ose became a completely different person, and Osayi wondered what could have gone wrong. The soft and kind woman he knew had now transformed into a monster that no one wanted to be associated with. Many rumored that she was possessed, but Osayi couldn't bring himself to believe it. He had seen her warmth, her kindness, her genuine care for others. Ose was brilliant, ambitious and compassionate. There had to be an explanation, something deeper that had changed her so drastically. Osayi left the hospital that evening with a heavy heart. He could feel the memories from university weighing on his mind, reminding him of the Ose that he had once adored, a woman who had been so full of life. But as he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was finally ready to detach himself from her emotionally. It was as though he was mourning not just his marriage, but the loss of the woman he was deeply in love with. For days, Ose couldn't shake the image of Osayi and Teka from her mind. She lay in the hospital bed restless, wondering what it meant for her future. Would Osayi leave her and start life with Teka? Would she be alone, raising her child with a man who was merely a father in name, but who no longer loved or cared for her? As the months went by, Ose gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, the child she had always wanted. However, although she loved her daughter with all of her heart, Ose could not help but feel incomplete. She had achieved what she set out to do. She had her child, but the absence of Osayi weighed on her more than she had ever imagined. Osayi had moved out of their home, but ensured that he paid a visit to his daughter and provided her every need. Yet, his visits were brief, his presence cold and distant. As he and Ose exchanged only the bare minimum of words, he was attentive to their daughter, showering her with love and care, but his affection for Ose had faded, leaving behind a void that Ose found impossible to ignore. Osayi had moved on emotionally, focusing on his own happiness. As the days passed, Ose found herself questioning the choices she had made. She had been so focused on securing her future and avoiding societal shame that she hadn't realized what she was sacrificing in the process. Osayi's love, once an unappreciated gift, was now something she missed terribly. One evening, after putting her daughter to sleep, Ose sat by the window, staring out into the dark night. Memories of her wedding came flooding back. How she had walked into the ceremony in a black dress, drunk and defiant. She had been so sure of herself then, so convinced that she didn't need love or companionship to be fulfilled. But now, holding her daughter and feeling the cold loneliness that had settled into her life, she wondered if she had been wrong all along. A soft knock at the door broke her thought. It was Osayi, arriving to spend time with their daughter. He greeted her with a warm smile, but there was a distance in his eyes that Ose couldn't ignore. "Hey," he said, stepping aside. "How's she doing?" "She's fine," Ose replied, trying to muster a smile. "Sleeping now." They stood in awkward silence for a moment before Osayi spoke again. "I'm glad she's healthy. You're doing a great job with her." "Thank you," Ose said softly, her voice barely audible. As Osayi turned to head to their daughter's room, Ose suddenly blurted out, "Osayi, wait." He stopped and turned around, his expression curious. "What is it?" "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," Ose said, her voice trembling slightly. "For everything, for pushing you away, for not appreciating what you tried to give me. I was so focused on what I thought I needed that I didn't see what I already had." Osayi looked at her for a long moment, his eyes softening. "Ose, I don't blame you for how things turned out. We both had different expectations. I wanted a life with you, but I also understand that you wanted something different. I was wrong," Ose whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I thought having a child would be enough. I thought I didn't need love, but now I don't know how to live without it." Osayi sighed deeply, walking over to stand in front of her. "Ose, I cared for you deeply, I still do, but we can't undo the past. You made your choices, and I made mine. I'll always be here for our daughter, but we can't keep living in what could have been." Ose nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know, I don't know how to fix this." "You don't have to fix it," Osayi said gently. "You just need to heal. Focus on yourself and on being the best mother to our daughter. That's what matters now." As Osayi left her side to check on their daughter, Ose sat back down by the window as she watched him, her heart breaking to see what she had lost, a man who showed her nothing but love. The realization of all she had lost weighed heavily on her, and the love she had once taken for granted now felt like a distant dream. She had her child, and one thing she thought would complete her life. Yet, the emptiness inside her only deepened with each passing day. For weeks, Ose tried to focus on motherhood, pouring all her energy into caring for her daughter. The little girl was her joy, and Ose adored her with all of her heart. But as she rocked her daughter to sleep at night, she couldn't help but feel the cold void where Osayi's love once was. Unable to bear the weight of her emotions any longer, Ose grabbed her phone and typed out a message to Osayi. Her fingers hovered over the send button, her heart pounding as she debated whether to go through with it. She had never been good at admitting her mistakes, and vulnerability was something she had always avoided. But this time, the pain was too much to bear. The message was simple, yet it carried all the weight of her regrets. "I'm sorry, I miss you." She sent it before she could change her mind. The next morning, Ose waited anxiously for a response, but none came. The silence was deafening, and as the hours passed, she began to fear that her message had come too late. Maybe Osayi had already moved on, emotionally detached from the woman who had hurt him so deeply. Maybe he was already starting a new life without her in it. Days went by without a word from Osayi. Ose's heart sank deeper into despair as she realized that there were some wounds that an apology couldn't heal. She had lost something precious, something that could never be fully recovered. Then, one evening, just as Ose was about to put her daughter to bed, there was a knock on the door. Her heart raced as she opened it to find Osayi standing there, his expression serious but not unkind. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Ose nodded, stepping aside to let him in. They sat down in the living room, the tension between them palpable. Osayi looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "I got your message," he said. "I've been thinking a lot about it." Ose swallowed hard, her hand trembling slightly. "I meant what I said, Osayi. I'm sorry for everything, for not appreciating you, for pushing you away. I don't know how to fix things, but I miss you." Osayi sighed, rubbing his hands together as he thought carefully about his next words. "I have one question, Ose," he said as Ose listened intently to what he had to ask. "Why did you treat me so badly? What did I ever do to you?" he asked Ose, who bursted out in tears, revealing the reason why she treated him so badly. "It was never about you, Osayi," she said, as she told him a story that she had never told anyone, not even her best friend Teka. "It was never about you, Osayi," Ose began, her voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't deserve the way I treated you, but I couldn't love you, not because of anything you did. It's because I don't trust love anymore. I can't." Osayi furrowed his brows in confusion. "What do you mean, Ose? How could you not trust love?" Ose let out a shaky breath, her eyes welling up with tears as she remembered a chapter of her life that she had locked away. "I loved once, Osayi, desperately. His name was Uyi, and I thought he was my entire world. We were inseparable. I gave him everything, my heart, my trust, my dreams. He was my first love, my everything. I was young and I believed in fairy tales back then. I thought he did too." Osayi's heart clenched as he listened. He had never heard her speak of Uyi before, and the raw emotion in her voice told him how deep this wound went. Ose wiped her eyes and continued, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "But what I didn't know was that the people I trusted most, my own family, my mother, my sister, they were the ones who betrayed me. They orchestrated everything behind my back." Osayi's eyes widened in shock as he asked what they did. "My mother, who died a few years ago, never liked Uyi, the man who I had been dating for a while. She thought he wasn't good enough for me and that he didn't come from the right family. And my sister," she paused, her voice breaking. "My sister Tinu, she was jealous of how much I loved Uyi. She wanted what we had. She wanted him." The revelation hit Osayi like a blow to the chest, and he struggled to keep up with the avalanche of emotion pouring out of Ose. "My mother convinced Tinu to seduce Uyi, to show me how he wasn't worthy of my love," Ose continued, her words laced with bitterness. "She said it was for my own good, that she didn't want me marrying beneath me, and my sister, she went along with it. without hesitation. They manipulated him, made him think I didn't care about him anymore. And Uyi, the man I thought would fight for me, fell for it. Osayi's mouth fell open in shock. They did that to you? Osai nodded, her face twisted with pain. One day, I walked into Tinu's room, and there he was, Uyi, lying in bed with her. I can still remember the look on his face when he saw me standing there. I thought my heart had stopped. It felt like I had been stabbed in my chest. Osayi could hardly believe what he was hearing. He had always known Osei had walls around her heart, but he had never imagined the extent of the betrayal she had endured. And you know what the worst part is? Osei's voice cracked as fresh tears fell. My mother stood there, watching the whole thing unfold, as if it were some lesson she needed me to learn. She said, "This is what happens when you give your heart to someone who's not worthy." She wanted me to believe that love, any love, was a weakness. She convinced me that love wasn't real, that it was a game. Osayi felt a lump in his throat as Osei's pain became his own. He had never understood why she had been so distant, so cold, but now the pieces were falling into place. I was devastated, Osayi. After that day, I swore off love. I shut myself off from feeling anything for anyone. I told myself I didn't need love to be happy, that all I needed was control. Control over my life, my choices. I focused on building a life where no one could hurt me again. She looked him in the eyes, her expression full of sorrow. That's why I pushed you away. I thought if I kept love out, I'd never have to feel that kind of pain again. I didn't believe you when you said you loved me. I couldn't. Not after what happened. I couldn't let myself be vulnerable again. Osayi sat in silence for a very long time, absorbing everything she had just revealed. He finally understood why Osei had been so guarded, why she had seemed so unreachable, but he also felt a deep sense of sorrow for her, for the life she had lost to betrayal and manipulation. Osei, he said softly, "I had no idea you went through that. I'm so sorry you were hurt like that. No one deserved what happened to you, but you never told me." Osei shook her head. "How could I? I was ashamed. I thought admitting the truth would make me weak, that it would make me seem broken. And maybe I am. But now I see that I've hurt you in the process. I've pushed you away, the one person who truly loved me." Osayi sighed, his heart heavy. "You didn't push me away, Osei. You shut me out completely. I tried so hard to love you, to show you that I wasn't like Uyi, that I wouldn't betray you, but you never let me in." "I know," Osei whispered, her voice filled with regret. "And I'm sorry, Osayi. I wish I had seen it sooner. I wish I could go back and do things differently." Osayi stood up, pacing the room, struggling with his emotions. He turned back to face her, his voice soft but firm. "Osei, I loved you with everything I had. I wanted a future with you, but you never gave us a chance." Osei wiped her eyes, feeling the weight of her past mistakes, crushing her. "I know I ruined everything, Osayi. I didn't know how to trust you." Osayi sighed, the pain evident in his eyes. "I understand now why you did what you did, but that doesn't change the fact that you broke us, Osei." Osei's heart sank, the realization of what she had lost finally settling in. She had pushed away the one person who had truly loved her because of a betrayal from her past, and now it was too late. "I'm so sorry," she whispered again, her voice trembling. "I know I can't ask you to stay, but I needed you to know the truth," she said as she broke down in tears. Osayi, seeing how broken she was, walked up to her and gave her a hug. "I love you, Osei," he said as tears poured down his eyes. "I was never with Teka, never was and never will. It is you that I love, and nothing on earth can change that." Teka suggested we give you the impression that we were together to truly know if you had any atom of feelings for me, and from the moment in the hospital, when you showed some form of concern for our closeness, I knew that there was hope for us, and the joy I felt in that moment was inexplainable. Osei's heart skipped a beat as she listened to Osayi's words, her mind struggling to process what he had just said. Tears streamed down her face as he held her, the warmth of his embrace so foreign, yet so comforting after all the walls she had built around herself. "You did this to see if I cared?" Osei whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Why, Osayi? After everything I've put you through, after all the ways I've hurt you, why?" Osayi pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her tear-filled eyes. because I love you, Ose. I always have, and I never gave up hope that somewhere deep inside you could love me back. Even after you pushed me away, I could see the pain in your eyes. I knew there was something holding you back, something you hadn't told me. Ose shook her head, the weight of his love overwhelming her. But I don't deserve you, Osayi. I've been so cruel, so distant. You deserve someone who can love you without all this baggage. No, Osayi interrupted softly, cupping her face in his hands. I don't want someone else, I want you, Ose. And now that I know the truth, I understand why you were afraid. I understand why you shut yourself off from love. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm still here, and I'm willing to fight for us if you let me. Ose's lips trembled as she tried to speak, her voice barely audible. I don't know how to love, Osayi, I'm scared. What if I hurt you again? Osayi smiled, a tear escaping his eyes as he wiped away one of hers. We'll figure it out together. I'm not expecting things to change overnight, but we have a child now, Ose, and I want our daughter to grow up in a home where love exists, where her parents care for each other, and I believe deep down that you can love me. You just need to give yourself permission to feel it. Just as they stood there, lost in their embrace, they heard a knock on their door. Osayi rushed to check who it was, and to his amazement, he saw a woman that he never expected to see. One that he had avoided for a very long time. What are you doing here? How did you find me? Osayi asked the strange woman, who insisted on coming inside his house. Let me in, she screamed aloud, drawing the attention of Ose, who rushed to check what was happening. When she got to the door, she was confronted by the sight of the strange woman, who knelt down and began to plead for her forgiveness. What are you doing here? Ose asked the strange woman, who continued to plead for forgiveness. Please forgive me, she said to Ose, who ignored her and walked into the house. Osayi was so confused as he wondered how Ose knew the strange woman. You know each other? He asked surprisingly as the strange woman revealed to him that she was Tinu, his wife's sister. Osayi's mouth opened in shock to realize what was happening. Tinu had done everything possible to sleep with him, but Osayi had stood his ground, not knowing that she was his wife's sister. Tinu walked into the house and began to plead for their forgiveness. Ose stared at her sister in stunned silence, memories of betrayal flooding her mind. Tinu had not only tried to take Uyi from her, but now she had tried to destroy her marriage to Osayi. Anger, hurt, and disbelief simmered in Ose's heart. Why, Tinu? Ose's voice trembled with suppressed pain. You tried to ruin me again. Wasn't Uyi enough for you? Tinu hung her head, her voice barely a whisper. I was blinded by jealousy, Ose. I wanted to prove that he, like everyone else, would betray you. I thought if I could show you that Osayi wasn't as faithful as you believe, you'd realize that no man could be trusted. But I was wrong. So wrong. I see now that Osayi is nothing like Uyi or anyone else. Ose's gaze hardened. Do you know what you've done to me? To us? She said, gesturing towards Osayi, who stood there still processing the revelation. Osayi loved me despite my flaws, despite my coldness, and my refusal to trust him. He stayed, hoping I'd learned to love him. And now you're here, trying to destroy the one chance I have at happiness. Tinu began to cry, her face a picture of genuine regret. Please, Ose, forgive me. I know I've been selfish, but I swear, I want to make it right. I want to see you happy, even if it means I lose you as my sister forever. I never realized what I was doing until I saw the two of you together. How he looked at you, even though you pushed him away. Osayi, who had been silent through their exchange, finally spoke. Ose, he said gently, his eyes reflecting both sadness and compassion. I can't force you to forgive her, but maybe this is the moment to let go of the past for all of us. I love you and I want us to heal. We have our daughter to think of, a future we can build together without carrying the weight of your family's mistakes. Ose looked from Osayi to Tinu, her eyes aching from the weight of betrayal and the possibility of healing. Slowly, she walked towards her sister, and for a moment, she didn't say a word. Then, with a shaky voice, she said, if you really mean it, Tinu, if you're genuinely sorry, I'll forgive you, but things will never be the same. I'll let go of the anger, but the trust, that will take time. Tinu nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Ose. I'll do whatever it takes to prove myself to you. As Tinu left, Ose turned to Osayi. her eyes reflecting both gratitude and fear. I don't know if I can fully let go of everything just yet, but I know I want to try. I want to be free of all the pain my family has caused, and I want to learn what it really means to be loved by you. Osayi embraced her, holding her close. One step at a time, he whispered, as they both hugged tightly. The next day, Osayi and Ose paid Teka a visit to thank her for her role in their reconciliation. They were so grateful to her for her genius plan that set their love in motion. Teka was so delighted to see how things turned out, and that was how Ose and Osayi lived happily with their daughter, cherishing every memory they made along the way. The lesson to be learned from this story is that love cannot be forced. True love cannot be built on convenience or societal expectations, but on mutual care and affection. Always ensure that your love is reciprocated before making life-altering decisions so as to avoid heartbreak and hurt. Also, unhealed emotional wounds can damage future relationships, and it's important to confront and resolve past pain before entering into new commitments. Learn to communicate in relationships because communication helps to avert unwanted pain. Last but not least, always forgive and do not hold on to hurt, as this can have a damaging effect on one's life. I hope you enjoyed the story.